Hello, hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Talk with Renee Dallow. It is me, it is your host. I mean, I always say that, but like, where else would I be? I would have to be here every week, and I am. This week, I am joined by the fabulous Jamila, I'm going to say it right, Musayeva.
Yes.
Yes. Longtime listeners of the show know that my own name has been a bit of a struggle for folks, so I really try to get it right for my guests, and so I'm pleased that I did, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Renee, for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. Our topic today is 10 golden rules for engaging conversations, and when this came into my inbox, I thought, "Yes, let's do this." Because for me, as a human person in the world, one of my superpowers is talking. That's why the show is called Talk. But I know that that isn't true for everyone. So, how did this become one of your topics?
Well, not. I would say that my track is a little bit different because I am approaching it from an etiquette standpoint of view. Being an etiquette consultant, working for
Yeah.
almost 6 years in this industry, I understand how having a conversation, being able to talk, but more importantly, so listen, is a huge element of building connection with people, of showing respect, of showing kindness, and that's what etiquette is all about. This is what the subject has been teaching people for centuries, really, how to be kind to people, how to be respectful. And so being able to talk, but being able to particularly listen so that you can engage properly in a conversation is essential to etiquette. And I think one of the most difficult things that people are coming across in today's day and time is engaging into small talk, which is by itself an art of its own, where people are struggling to make connection on that like surface level. Because I always say, if you cannot engage into small talk, you will never be able to master the deeper talks. So it's kind of like an ice, like breaking the ice kind of conversation, so that then you can get to know the person and then delve into more important things.
And I also am very interested in your international background because I have traveled internationally, but I'm also aware that my energy is very American, right? I'm very outgoing. I talk very fast. I'm from New York City originally. So when you coach, you're coaching people all over the world, I would imagine.
Yes, all over the world, clients from everywhere, and particularly the United States, actually. It's interesting that that's the biggest part of my clientele as well as my audience.
Well, because I think we know that we're not as well mannered as other people.
No, that's not true. I didn't think that's the case. I just think there is a bigger interest, I guess, more people there, so naturally more audience. And also because I teach in English, that makes sense that a more English speaking audience is drawn to me.
Yeah. So I'm in the world of weddings, as you know,
Mhm.
and etiquette is something that comes up constantly in wedding planning, and it almost always feels to me, oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this probably. It almost always feels to me that when my clients and or especially their parents are asking me etiquette questions, that it might actually be the first time they've ever actually considered like what is appropriate for a certain situation, and that really sort of blows my mind sometimes where they're like, "What's the etiquette about sending thank you cards?" And I was like, "Please send them." What? And it seems basic, but I would imagine that in your line of work, you're kind of like you said, if you can't have a surface level or a small talk conversation, how will you go deeper? Do you feel people struggle with some of these little things that maybe should seem, I don't know,
Absolutely.
commonplace?
Common sense, yes,
Yeah.
and I think that's what one of the things that actually struck me is that people would approach me, especially most of my clients would come again, as I said, from the United States, and those would be in front before some big event would happen. It'd be either getting engaged, meeting in-laws, meeting in-laws in a restaurant, going for family holidays together for the very first time. Be it have to deliver a presentation to my boss or have to travel with my boss or something like that. So it's usually people start realizing, oh God, I need etiquette rules. I need to know how to behave before this big event that will like make me either break it or make it. It's interesting because I actually launched my YouTube channel in 2019, so just when COVID hit. And then people would tell me that they would find themselves in the confinement of their home thinking about how do I walk? How do I sit properly? And that's how they stumbled upon my channel. So interestingly is that people started like self-inspecting and thinking about what are the certain things I could improve about my life, and that's how they found me. And there's a huge interest. Actually, I've seen a surge of interest in etiquette over the years of people realizing that, oh, wait a second, I do think that etiquette's too relevant when they have to face some bigger events like their wedding.
I really do think etiquette is extremely relevant, especially in this post-pandemic world where those of us who weren't seeking out etiquette videos went the opposite way and just lived in sweatpants and like slovenly for 2.5 years where we're like, nobody can see me, it doesn't matter. And so I think it's more important now. And in fact, to that point, so I speak at Wedding MBA, which is like this big conference in the wedding industry every year. It was the first year we were back in person, which was 2021, maybe.
Mhm.
I think I'm getting my dates correct. And it's the date is germane because I was asked to do a presentation about first impressions because so many folks had sort of just not thought about that in a while, or they were making first impressions like we are today, you and I, over Zoom, and it's a little bit different.
Yes.
It's more easy to control when you're doing it this way, whereas if you're out in the wild. Okay, so tell me, what are some tips for making that good first impression?
Okay, so before I say so, the study usually said before that it only takes about 7 seconds to make that first impression. But honestly, with the short span of our attention that we have right nowadays, we can understand based on TikTok or social media that it takes us even less than 7 seconds to formulate an opinion about anything, be it a person, a video, a little something. Do we want to watch it or not? We're like interested or not. So it's really, or also with like dating apps like Tinder and so on, people's really judgment has sharpened so fast that they're able to sort out, is it for me or not? And so making a good impression really boils down to a few seconds. And those few seconds, as shallow as I'm going to sound when I'm saying this, is going to be first and foremost primarily based on how you present yourself. And that includes the coverage that you have, and that includes the way you're dressed, the way you carry yourself. Because it's when I say about the way you look, I'm not necessarily just talking about your physical appearance. So, not like just your grooming or your clothes or your style. I'm talking about the energy you bring into the room. You might be the best dressed person, but if something is missing in your body language, if you don't exhibit that confidence and that really coolness or charisma, that clothing is not going to look nice. And the reverse is right. Even if you are the most confident, the smartest person in the room, if you don't look presentable, people will most likely dismiss you in the first couple of seconds and won't even give you a chance to open up your mouth and really strike them with your knowledge. So I think it's really important to keep the balance. So not just be focused on how you look only, or not just be focused on how you're carrying yourself, but rather try to make sure that the two are complementing. And bear in mind, when I'm saying looking good, I don't necessarily mean looking beautiful. I don't talk about, certain standards of your beauty. I'm not talking about certain brands of clothing. I'm just talking about looking proper. So looking adequate, that means presentable for the place that you are, time, place, and culture that you're in. So appropriate for that occasion. Clean, that is important. That's like you can wear the most expensive clothes, but if it's sweaty, if it's stained, if it's like has little, here and there like ties and knots, it's not going to look nice. And then just looking fitting, and that's very important because especially post pandemic, people have either not fit into their wardrobe or have lost a lot of weight, and the things are really loose now. So just take your things to tailor and make, you don't have to reinvest into a new wardrobe, but just make sure that the ones that you have are fitting you properly. So those are three things for me that are essentially appropriate, adequate, being clean and tidy, and fitting is what matters.
Cosign 100%. You said a word though that I want to ask you about because I'm just curious about this because it's a question that I've been asked. You said charisma.
Mhm.
Do you think someone can be taught charisma or develop their own charisma, or do you think it's like you have it or you don't?
I honestly believe that everything that we have is owned. Is it's Most of what we are is what we make of ourselves. No one is born confident. No one is born resilient or patient. It's the things that we are building in ourselves. We all have, I guess, predispositions to some characteristics. So some people might naturally be more reluctant or more willing or more easy to be confident, feel confident. But what is really confidence? It's when you know what you're doing is doing right, when you have the knowledge and the skill set that makes you feel like you can do it. So, even from my own experience, or look at a lot of politicians, if you look at their earlier records of them giving a public speech when they were just a senator or where they're just like starting off their political career versus them in power, how they've been, watch Obama, over the span of years, watch Margaret Thatcher when she was just starting, and then her in power. She was taking eloquence classes, she was taking deportment classes. So these people are day and night talking into public, day and night training these skills. So Obama became a confident man that we know of him now because of the years of making. You cannot, I always say this to all my students, you can't compare your day one with someone's day 100. Obviously, we're not on the same level, on the same stage, you know? But when you understand, when you approach the things with a mindset that I can learn to become charismatic, you will develop the right skill sets, or you will train yourself to become a charismatic person. Look at all Hollywood stars, how they're starting, how they looked when they just started, and how they look now on stage. I mean, all you have
Yeah,
to do is just find some people that you look up
yeah.
to and just Google them when they were younger. Thank God we have internet now, and you can tell a huge difference in the way they talk and the
I
way they
know.
carry themselves.
Yeah, so I live in Los Angeles. I don't know if we talked about that beforehand. So, and my husband works in the TV industry, so we are, I don't wanna say we're enmeshed because that sounds like too much of a word, but we are around people that you would know, more often than not, and I will say that when you're in the presence of someone like, I'll say, for example, Tom Cruise, right? You know he's in the room. He has, like, a star quality about him just by existing, and I would imagine that when he was 16 and starting in his very first film, when he had messed up teeth and, acne, he didn't have that same aura. It really is an aura.
It
Um,
is.
and that comes with life and time and like you said, developing confidence. The other thing that I always know about those celebrities that are very magnetic, and you said this first thing, is that they really listen to the people who are talking to them. Like, I've never made such direct eye contact with anyone as I did with Tom Cruise in that one moment when I interacted with him. Like, and it's almost like he's really seeing you. And for a moment, it is off putting because you're like, what is happening right now? But then you get it, right? You understand why he's one of our, old time movie stars at this point, and you get it. And so I offer that, as an example because I think, like you said, people who are starting on this journey of maybe recognizing, I don't really give the greatest first impression. I'd like to change that.
Mhm.
It is a journey, and confidence is a muscle, I
Oh,
think.
it
Yeah.
is a muscle. But honestly, when you were to put this situation of someone looking into your eyes, gazing through it, if this were not Tom Cruise and you didn't know of all his achievements and things like that, this was a random man in the room, you would think, okay, he must be creepy. Like, what's wrong with him? But adding into all the things that he has about him, we start, adding these all things together and thinking, oh my God, he's so confident. He has this, he does this straight eye contact, which is a huge part of also being confident. But also, I think it's part of American culture when people eye contact is very much something that we consider as a signal of confidence, versus in Asian countries, people in power would, you wouldn't stare into their eyes, or they would not stare into your eyes because it's considered rude. So it depends. It's very culturally sensitive issue when it comes to confidence and what signifies confidence. But I also do think that confidence is the feeling we feel with the skill set and with the actions that we have taken. So you can't see an empty, confident person. Those just sound silly to us, or they look silly in the room. But when you have, and I always say it when I'm
Yeah.
trying to instill confidence in people, and I say, I want you to feel your best self with all the teachings that I do. Just saying, oh God, let's all feel confident, or just by saying, let's just feel confident. You have to feel confident. I'm never going to make you feel confident if there is nothing backing you up. But if I am telling you, Renee, let's learn this skill. Let's start learning how to master this. And when we are slowly building more skill sets, that is what makes us feel confident because there's something backing it up. We know we are capable, and that's what gives you the sense of confidence. If Tom Cruise didn't achieve what he achieved, he wouldn't have that aura. So, in all I'm saying always is that if you want to be confident,
Yeah.
build your skill set, learn languages, learn public speaking, learn to dance, learn to sing, learn to whatever it is. The more skill set you have, the more you feel confident about yourself. And that is the energy that we are transmitting to everyone around us.
Okay, so say we're at a cocktail party and networking event, and we meet someone new for the first time. Do you have a trick for remembering their name? Because I know that's a big problem for some folks.
So actually, this is not just about people that are, casually we're meeting here and there. I was recently attending a conference in London, and there was this famous Arab journalist. She was in charge of interviewing Baria Alamuddin, and she kept on referring to her as Daria. And only on the third time, Baria corrected her, and she is like, "My name is not Daria, I am Baria." So I mean, it's a one letter, but she couldn't remember it, and she's a journalist. So I would assume she probably knows. She's probably done her research
Yeah.
beforehand. She knows how to do her work, but even the professionals sometimes get it messed up. So understanding that it can happen, but also we have to be graceful when someone mispronounce our name and make sure that it's our job to correct the person who is doing the mistake. The best trick and the one that works always is trying to use their name 3 times throughout the 30 minutes or 40 minutes that we are interacting with them. So within the 1 hour that we are in one-to-one conversation, try to say, "Oh, Renee, listen, this is what I wanted to tell you." And then again, in a couple of questions, again, I'll tell your name. It helps me register your name, and it also helps me register what I'm saying with the conversation that we're having with the person instead of just saying you all the time. Another thing that I always find that helps a lot is trying to remember the name with someone you either know, something maybe it reminds you of someone, some kind of a word or a person that you can associate with. These are usually with the names that we're familiar with, but sometimes we hear someone's name that is from a different culture. We've never heard this before. So it's always best, as we did before this interview started, you asked me, "Tell me how to correctly pronounce your name." Instead of just jumping in and butchering it the whole interview, you took the time to ask me, "What is the correct way to pronounce it?" And then you are using the same pronunciation. So always ask for guidance rather than trying to come up with their name or nickname. And never, ever nickname a person unless they have given you the right to do so. Um, that's something that has happened a lot to me actually in the United States, and I always tell this over and over again, especially in other cultures. Like people would jump in nicknaming me, like, "Hey, Jamie, Jamie, I wanted to tell you something, something," and I'm like, "Hi,
Oh,
I am not Jamie, I am Jamila. I don't have a nickname, Jamie. This is what," and my answer is, um, or JJ or something like, people sweet call me. I mean, they try to, but you never sweet call a person unless they've given you the right to do so. That's very important.
that is very important. Yes, there is no nickname for Renee, yet people try all the time. And to be honest, that's the reason my mother named me Renee, was because she doesn't like nicknames. So my whole life I grew up with that bias of like, you don't have a nickname. It's like I don't have a nickname. The other thing that I try to do, like culturally, right? If I'm traveling somewhere and like you said, someone tells me their name and it's not a name I've heard before, is I think sometimes, and because I've seen other folks do this, in the moment they expect that it's the kindest thing to just hear the name and then use the name and just not ask any questions and just go. Whereas I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamila, but like if someone tells me their name and I've never heard it before, I sometimes take an extra moment to say, Tell one more time," and then I'll say it again and sort of wait and be like, "Great." I have a friend of mine. Her name is Kunbi Otobogan, and the first time I met Kunbi is easy. The Otobogan part, I was like, one more time. I, to be honest, never said to her, like, is it okay? But I want to make sure that I'm remembering it, I'm getting it, I'm like taking it in correctly the first time, because I'm more likely to remember it correctly 5 months from now than if I'm just glossing over it and pretending that I've got it.
Exactly, exactly. I always say this to all my students. Never shy away from asking someone their name, to repeat it, how to spell it, how to pronounce it correctly in their language. Especially when, you're trying to build a long-term relationship, you're trying to get to know the person. The person will very much appreciate if you put the energy and time and effort to understand where the name is coming from, why is it so intricate, and sometimes I do it too, especially with foreign names that I've never heard before. I would say, "Oh, Renee, interesting. Like, what does this name mean?" Or like, "Why are you?" And so sometimes it's easier to remember the name with a story behind it, with a explanation of what the word is in that language. So it's really important to take the time to register rather than try to. People always feel like they can slide with like trying to kind of like speak through your name, but it gets registered and you don't want to mess that up. You want to make sure that you do
Mhm.
the best job you can with pronouncing people's name.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say about names, and then we'll get off the name thing, is I really prefer when I'm meeting someone new for them to tell me their first and last name because so many people that I know in my industry or just in the world, I know from the internet. And so I might know them on Facebook as their full name, but if in person they're like, "I'm Lindsay." I'm like, "Well, there's like 75 Lindsays on Facebook. Like, which one are you?" If you tell me your full name, I'm way more likely to recognize that I have interacted with you in some way than just generally being like, "Oh, and Jennifer." Like, please help me out. Like, tell me your full name.
Exactly, exactly. It's the most formal actually way of introducing yourself. So if you were talking about networking events, like you asked before, how do people get to remember each other's names? Is when you are introducing yourself, introduce yourself with full name. Never refer to yourself with a title. So don't say I am Miss Jamila Musayeva, or you'd say I'm Miss Renee Dallo. So you would never say that. You just say hi, I'm full name. And but for example, if you are introducing someone else, so it's not you, but like I'm introducing a doctor, someone, or a Mr. or Mrs., then I can include the title. But I would never include title for my own self.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so we've met someone, we got their name, we've done the thing. We're hopefully getting first and last name, we're getting pronunciation. How do we and I'm asking this because so much of our lives are us talking to cameras solo these days. What is the art of like that conversation that goes both ways?
So the art of having a conversation both ways is just like what we're having right now with you, almost like a little podcast. So imagine you, whoever you're talking to, you've invited them to your podcast and you're there to learn about them. I keep on saying this in a lot of my videos and I keep on saying it in a lot of my classes is, we all want to be the most interesting person in the room, but you have to be the most interested person in the room. So try to really be interested in learning about the person you're meeting, because the art of small talk and the art of conversation, art of being a good speaker is actually being a good listener. So people remember by how you make them feel, and they will remember that, oh, Jamila was listening to me when I was talking to her. Actually, this is something that happened to me when I was in college. My friend's father, who was a very prominent lawyer in the US, he came over and hosted some of her friends, so me included. We went to dinner with him, and I sat next to him. And that time, I was interested in going to law school, so I was genuinely interested in what he had to tell me about being a lawyer and working in this industry. So I kept asking him questions and I listened and I listened and I listened genuinely because I was so interested. And at the end of the dinner, he told me, you know what? It's like, you have a great skill. And I was like, what is that? He said, you are a very great listener. And that's, I love talking to you because you love listening to me. And the sweetest thing the person can hear is their voice, is their own voice. So when they're talking, when we have this conversation, I'm going to leave off feeling, oh, I had a great conversation with Renee, when in fact, only I did the talking and Renee just asked me questions. So we feel like we had the best conversation with whoever listened to us the most. That's why we love, talking to our therapists because they listen to us. So being a great listener is the most important thing when it comes to mastering the small talk, talking to someone, especially when you're at networking event. I often find that people are trying to, speed date and meet everyone they can. you know it's not the number of people you meet at that networking event, it's about the quality of the connections that you make. You might leave me having met 50 people, but really the quality of your conversations or the quality of your connection with those people is going to be just, very shallow, versus you might meet only five people, but you've really connected so much that out of these connections might be a new project be born, collaboration, partnership, friendship, whatever, you name it. And I've attended a lot of different conferences over the years, and I have learned that it is so important to connect with a lesser quantity, but with a better quality. And that comes with being a good listener and being interested in really getting to know the person. I oftentimes feel like a lot of people are coming there to introduce themselves and kind of like sell themselves off, which is not what you want to do. You want to really get to know
Yeah.
the people that are attending. And so the skill is to really be interested.
So this kind of follows up on that. I think I know what you're going to say, but I want to ask because I always put myself in the mind of the people listening in their cars driving to a networking event, right? What if someone is feeling quite nervous about the right questions to ask, right? Because they're going to do what you said. They're going to be engaged and they're going to really listen. What if they're a little shy about the questions? Do you have like I don't know standard kind of questions you can always have in your back pocket?
Yes, I think the only conversations that, well, I mean, the conversations we have to stay off is, religion, as always, politics, you know, any kind of like sex, any kind of intimate questions, financial income, how much do money do you make? Those are off topic. You don't talk about these things. But safe things to talk about at a networking event is, who are you, what you do, where are you from, like where do you live, how did you come here, how did you hear about this networking event, what do you do, like tell me more about your work, like, oh, like what company are you working for? So anything that is in within the realm of safe topics is anything that has to do with the person, where they're from. Once they've told where they're from, maybe you have a friend there, maybe you've been to their city, then you can start talking about the city, what you loved, what you didn't like. Maybe you're learning the language they're from, you want to try to say some phrases in that. Maybe you can connect over, oh, like, tell me what you do, and then they can tell you what they do, and maybe they'll tell you what else they like to do in terms of their hobbies. You can connect over your interests. You can connect over perhaps certain events that you probably attended together. Maybe you can both connect over the fact that it's both your first time here. So there's always something we can connect with a fellow human being without being too noisy. Like, how much money do you make? Like, what is your average standard salary? Like, do you have a family? Do you have kids? All
Yeah.
these things should be off topic when we're at a networking event for a company. For this is a business etiquette. Again, if we're in a social setting in a different culture, some topics might be quite okay to talk about. So we have to be mindful of where we are, but it's always safe to talk about work. You can ask to exchange business cards. If someone is not offering you a business card, you can offer yours first,
Mhm.
and that initiates the person to give theirs to you. So you could be like, "Oh, I would like to connect with you. So here is my business card." In return, they might say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have my business card, but this is my information," or I will connect with you," or something like that. So it's always safe to kind of talk around the things that could connect you over there. Again, if you're having lunch together, you can talk about things that you loved at lunch, like, oh, they served such an amazing salad, I really loved it. I love getting this salad here and there, and they can say, oh, by the way, this is my favorite place too. So there are a lot of things we can connect over with other human beings. But before we delve into deeper topics where we can open up and really talk for our hearts, we have to kind of master the shallow or the small talk before we get to deeper topics.
I'm just going to add this to
Mhm.
the pot of things to not maybe ask specifically for wedding pros. A very common question is how many weddings do you have this year? Which I always read as a veiled it's like asking how much money are you making this year? And so anytime someone comes at me and there's a couple of folks in my market who that is their opening question always, "Oh, good to see you. How many weddings do you have this year?" And I dance around it because I just don't think it's a conversation that I wanna have because I know the minute I say a number, they're doing math in their head. And I'm probably
Absolutely.
more open to talk about money with folks than most people, but it's such a strange opening question that I'm always just like, "Where have you been
Yeah.
traveling lately? Isn't this cocktail nice?" Like, I don't wanna answer that. Yeah.
Exactly. It's almost like asking like how much sales did you have this year, like for your book, or for your like if it's an author, or for your clothing like line, how much money did you make this year? So anything that is money
Right.
related is really off-putting, especially as a startup question. Again, we can talk about numbers if we are then, much closer and we want to share our experiences and talk about how to increase that, or how to work around it. But this should not be your opening. Like, you could be like, Renee, like, what is your favorite like theme when it comes to wedding preparations? Like, what has been the most beautiful wedding that you've organized?
Yes.
And I would be asking those questions because I'm truly interested in that, because I want to know really what was the best wedding, or what was the
Yeah.
most interesting one. So when you approach someone from an interest standpoint of view, rather than trying to research and understand how much money they're making or how profitable they are, obviously people can read off what your intentions are. And coming up with good intentions and intentions of getting to know the person is definitely immeasurable, and people will appreciate that.
What if someone, who has not been schooled by you or listened to this episode, what if someone does mention one of those taboo topics, right? What if they talk about politics straight away? Or I had someone many years ago, God, 15 years ago, the very first time I met her, tell me her entire sexual history.
Wow,
And
I've
I was
had that
like,
too.
"Oh, oh, oh, right.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you not engage?"
I would just I usually, well, depends on if I can escape or if I'm stuck. So I have had an occasion where I was at a seated formal dinner where I had to just listen to a whole tribute about their sexual journey and life and everything. And so I was stuck, so I couldn't get up. I mean, it was a formal dinner table with name cards, and I could just stand up and leave. So I kept on nodding the whole
Yeah.
time, allowing them to talk. I wasn't asking anything in return. I was just saying that's understandable. I can see. Just trying to make sure that I'm not rude or I'm not intrusive and asking questions, not showing interest. And then at one point, I said I
Yeah.
had to leave the dinner earlier. I said I have to go because I have other engagements now, and so I just left the table because I couldn't take it anymore. But when you're not stuck, and this is an on foot kind of networking event, you can easily exit the conversation by saying, I'm so sorry to interrupt you at this point. There's another colleague of mine that is coming by, if it's true, or there's someone else I would love to meet, and they're going to leave soon. So it was a pleasure talking to you. I'll hopefully catch up with you again, and I would love to, I'm going to meet my friend, or I want to grab some lunch, or I need to go to, to the bathroom. So I'll always find an excuse to leave, but I would never leave the person kind of not without telling that I'm going to leave, which is very rude. If you're having a conversation, it's only two of you can't just leave the person and just go. You have to explain that you're going to leave now, and maybe you can see each other later, and hopefully never see each other later if you don't want to. But it's also always very safe to leave when there is three of you standing or four of you. So when there's more than just you, you can, you can move your body towards the exit, sort of in a way, tilt your body away from the person, thereby giving off with our body language that you're about to leave the conversation. And when you find a moment that when they take a pause, you could say, I hope both of you are enjoying your day today. I'm sorry to interrupt at this point. I'll have to leave now. And then when you leave, the two will still be talking. So it's always really good when there's someone else also having a conversation with the two of you, so the three of you, so you can easily exit the conversation. I would always say that if you are being asked something that is not something you feel comfortable responding, let them know that you're not comfortable with that. You could say, thank you for your interest, but I don't feel like I want to discuss this with you, or I don't feel it's appropriate for me to discuss this matters with you. So you always have to draw your boundaries. People, I feel like these days feel like they're entitled to everything about you, and that's how they feel like they're breaking the ice by being intrusive. Breaking the ice is not being intrusive, and oversharing is not breaking the ice. You can make the other person feel very uncomfortable with what you've overshared. So, breaking the ice is learning to engage into small talk without being intrusive and keeping boundaries. And that's very important, because I believe that if a person is really asking these questions, do I really want to have future talks with this person? Most likely not.
Right, and, once you say something to a virtual stranger, they can't unknow it. So if you have, like, a blurting problem of, like, "Let me just say something true and embarrassing," it like, that one person who gave me their entire sexual history, I that's the only thing I think of when I think of that person. I'm like, and that was 15 years ago, right? And I'm like, "I know too much about you, and I will always know too much about you." Yeah.
And sometimes just remember this. Good that you said it, Renee. But like one important point is now that you know it, and say I'm a person that talks a lot too. So I can share this with someone else who has not even met you and knows already too much about you based on what I've told them. Know that anything that you utter, either in person or online, especially with the emergence of screenshots and emergence of traceable research, anything that you say on or offline will be remembered by others, and you don't want those words haunting you back. So think twice before you say something.
I have a question for you that we it wasn't in our notes, so if we can always cut this if you're like, "I don't wanna answer this." But, this has been going on for quite some time in that, like, a lot of wedding pros, we live on Instagram, right? Everything we do is on Instagram. It's either on the feed or the stories or a reel. So oftentimes when I see folks in person that I follow online, there is a knowledge there of what they've been up to, right? So sometimes it feels so strange to say, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in a year, but I know you were in Italy last week. How was it?" Is that okay etiquette-wise to know what we know from the internet and bring it into real life?
I think absolutely, because that's the intention
Okay.
of social media. Because if they're sharing with you to see, that's obviously, and they'll be flattered to know that you have been keeping up with their Instagram and you know that they've been in Italy. It would be weird if you've been following them and seeing their story and acting like you have no idea where they've been. But also, sometimes people follow others from their private or like incognito accounts, pretending that they don't even follow them.
Yeah.
And I have seen mishaps happen when
Mhm.
people have been quietly stalking someone, and then when they meet the person they're like, oh, how was your trip? And then it's like, but you don't follow me, how do you know I've been on a trip? So I would say be very careful with that, especially if this is someone that you probably just, I don't know, you watch them secretly. I hope that you don't, but if people do so, they have to be very careful about who they follow secretly. But again, if it's a so I've been asked a lot, because again I have an open Instagram, and I've been asked by my audience when I've had my meet and greet in person. They've told me, I saw you were there last night at this restaurant. How did you like it? And I would say, oh, it was really nice. I love the meal. So it really shows that people follow and they're interested, and that was a great opening line. So it's completely fine, because people have been sharing it, and you can use that information, of course.
'Cause I've been using that for years and but sometimes it does feel odd, you're like, "I know I saw it online, like, I don't really know you, but I saw it." So, yeah, I'm glad that that's etiquette-wise, I'm glad that that's okay.
Yes.
Um, I always ask my guests about self-care because it's something that I have near and dear to my heart and something in the wedding industry that is severely lacking. A lot of entrepreneurs in this space, do not take very good care of themselves because they're taking care of clients. So, Jamila, what is your, sort of non-negotiable self-care? What can you not live without for yourself?
Oh, I would say if we're only one thing I had to choose between food, I guess food and sleep, I would say sleep. Like it's number one thing that I really am very like careful about, to make sure that I get enough amount of sleep. So I have also two kids,
Yeah.
so a 9-year old and a 6-year old. And for me, sleep is essential so that my nervous system is very relaxed, and that I don't put off all that energy, because I have a lot to give. I have to, nurture two little kids, and I have to take care of home. So for me, it's really important that I have all that filled up. And for me, sleep is essential. But and I always encourage this. If I mean, I don't sleep a lot during the night, so I make sure that I go to bed before 11, and I wake up at 6:30, 7ish. So I don't really sleep that long throughout the night, but and also wake up a few times to tend to my kids. But I make sure that during the daytime, in the afternoon, I take a 30-minute nap, and I have it on my alarm clock. I don't sleep more than 30 minutes. It's just a 30-minute power nap, and I can take it anywhere. I can take it in a car, I can take it in on the sofa, so I don't really have to be in bed for that. I just learned to like snooze, because it really helps me to replenish and then have carry out podcast shoot at 9 p.m. So it's very important for me. But really, Renee, self-care for me is more than just sleep. Yeah, I have a lot of calls with us, and some of them go like at 11 p.m. and longer, so I have to prioritize my sleep schedule. But for me it's really holistic approach to
Yeah.
everything. So I take care, I make sure that I eat well, I make sure that I drink plenty of water, hydrate myself. I make sure that I For me, self-care is not just about apart from hygienic rules and all that, but it's really about the movies I watch. I stay away from anything that is draining energetically,
Yes.
anything. I stay away from bad news. I try not to watch a lot of news channels. I just read reports of what is happening. I try not to watch because I'm very sensitive to things that I see, and it can take me days and days to restore. So
Mhm.
I'm very careful to the kind of music I listen to, the kind of book that I read, and I tell this to my kids as well. We just have to be mindful of everything we put in, and that includes the music we listen to, the information we're getting, the movies we're watching, because nowadays we're not only consuming some trash food. I'm sorry for using that word, but we're also consuming a lot of trash information that is very
No, it's
difficult to
true.
get rid of afterwards, emotionally, mentally. So for me, it's very important to make sure that I protect my health, not just my physical health, but also my mental, emotional health, and so that I can be the most giving as a mother, but also as an entrepreneur, as an etiquette consultant. It's very important that I keep it together.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I as well do not watch news. I read news, but I
Mhm.
don't watch news because I get very upset about the sensationalism of how things are reported, and I'd like to make up my own mind if possible for
Yeah.
things. So I don't think I've ever said that on the show, and so I'm glad you mentioned that sort of like taking stock of what it is you're I don't watch violent movies, that's like a standing thing with my husband and I, like, he likes to watch, like, Sopranos or, like, war movies. I literally cannot watch them, I won't sleep.
Same,
So
same.
you and I are similar in that way. I think it's important to recognize yourself, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes. And it took
Yeah.
me a couple of years, I started listening more and more to myself after I've been to a movie like that. I would go with a lot of friends. They were like, "Oh, come, come." These were numbers, the genres I loved. But coming out of the movie, I realized like half of my energy is drained. Am I not supposed to feel like I'm uplifted after watching a movie? It could be a sad movie. It does not have to always be a happy movie, but something sad but meaningful, something sad that really fills me up emotionally, makes me think, makes me ponder. So I've learned the things or scary movies are the ones I never watch, or some like science fiction that is like end of the world, kind of like these kind of movies. I try to stay away from that. I mean, already the world by itself is quite a strugglesome place. We have so much going on in the world. So why do I need the movie to show me that? Again, I'm not calling for everyone to do that, but if you feel like you don't feel comfortable watching it, don't watch it. You don't have to feel obliged that you have to catch up on every movie or every TV show that's popular.
Yeah, I just say, "That's not for me." If it comes up in conversation, I'll say, "Oh, no, that's not for me." And that's the end. Like, we don't have to have a whole conversation as to why I don't wanna watch the, airplane
Crashing.
crashing, like, I'm in planes 3 times a month. I don't need to watch that on a screen. I'm good. But I'm glad that you mentioned that holistic, self-care because that's really the goal, is to just encourage the entrepreneurs that are listening to sort of take all the suggestions that our guests, our very brilliant guests give us and say like, "Oh, maybe this is for me." Right? And that's what all of this is about. That's why we do the podcast, right? Everything that Jamila said, maybe you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's good. I should use that." It's just taking what you need and leaving the rest, you know? Jamila,
Absolutely.
where can people find you on the internet and how can they work with you?
They can find me on my website, jamilamusayeva.com, where you have my pre-recorded online courses for etiquette. I have authored three etiquette books. So etiquette, the least you need to know, afternoon tea etiquette, and the art of entertaining at home for people that, want to host people over gracefully at home, as well as how to be good guests. So I have authored three books, and I also have a eponymous YouTube channel, Jamila Musayeva, which has circa 1 million viewers, and there I talk about etiquette, soft skills, self-development, all kind of videos that can equip you with a skill set. And that's what my whole agenda is, to really educate people, to give them skill set that they or inspire them to learn more languages, to learn more skill set, to deepen their knowledge in whatever they're passionate about, so that that brings them confidence, not just I will tell you feel confident and you'll feel confident. That's not my philosophy in life. And I always keep on showing with my own example that at any age of your life, you can start learning anything new. I just took on horseback riding 3 months ago, and I'm showing in my videos on Instagram, where they can also follow me, Jamila Musayeva, where I show how I started and how I'm doing now. So I'm 33 and I'm showing that I you can start horseback riding at 33, and with enough discipline and workout you can learn to do it. I was never born a horse ride back rider. I was never exposed to that, so this is me learning it in my 30s, and I show it in a lot of other things that I'm doing. So I hope that I not just preach, but I also show with my example. I love to call myself like a field mom rather than a bench court mom. Like, I am a mother that wants to show my kids and
Yeah.
my audience by being in the field that this is how you get the work done, not by sitting on the bench and shouting like, go run, go do this. That's not the kind of a philosophy I have. So they can find me on Instagram, on YouTube, as well as on my website, my courses, my books. And also, I do online courses as well, online classes, individual workshops. And also, I do some meet and greets. I've done in the US, I've done in Dubai, and Abu Dhabi lately. And I can be invited as a guest speaker if anyone needs to have me over. So that's all I do. Oh, I forgot, by the
Cool.
way, another last
Hey,
thing.
US, let's get Jamila over here.
Yes,
Hello.
yes. I will be coming to US, by the way, in June, so hopefully. Yeah,
Hey.
they can also find my Patreon Etiquette Movie Club, where every month I do an analysis of a movie from an etiquette standpoint of view. It's a very unique content. I've never seen anyone do it before. So I've done over 30 different movie analysis and analyzing them from an etiquette standpoint of view. So looking at different episodes in the movie and what can be learned from them. Some mistakes as well in the movies as well.
I love that.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Okay, well, I'm gonna sign up for all the things. We're gonna put all the links in the show notes so you can go find Jamila out in the world, and we'll also put your US, dates in the show notes too, in case anyone nationwide is nearby where you're gonna be and they wanna come see you in person. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Renee, for inviting me. And thank you for having this lovely chat. I really enjoyed it.
Me too, me too. Okay, friends, go out in the world and get your manners straight, and we'll see you next week on the show. Bye for now.